Test 1, 2, 3.
Recording in
morning.
progress.
I'm calling the Joint Organization Governance Committee meeting to order, today being Thursday, February 29th. It is 9:05, and we do have a quorum, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. This meeting is being held virtually and in person, so I will do a roll call of the trustees to confirm attendance. JOGC committee members sitting on the Board of Retirement, JP Harris. Here. BOR Chair Sean Kehoe. Here. And Ms. Gray is on her way. JOGC member Board of Retirement Vice Chair Les Robbins will not be joining us today. JOGC committee members sitting on the Board of Investments, Debbie Martin. Here. Herman Santos.
Here.
Board of Investments Chair Patrick Jones. Here. JOGC member, Board of Investments Vice Chair Keith Knox will not be joining us as well. Nancy Mee from the Board of Investments is also joining us today, and no other trustees are present. Staff participating in the meeting include CEO Santos Kryman, Deputy CEO Louis Lugo, Assistant Executive Officers JJ Popowich and Laura Guglielmo, CIO John Grable, Chief Audit Executive Richard Bendel, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice, Senior Staff Counsel Allison Barrett, Compliance Consultant Rebecca Walker from Kaplan and Walker is also joining us today. Trustees, please use the raise your hand Zoom option to be placed in the queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute their mics until you are ready to speak. And now we may proceed with the agenda.
Thank you, Bonnie. The next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Nicole Mee, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? All rise. Put your hands over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Justice for all, remember that.
Thank you.
I missed that in the boardroom.
Yeah. All right, next item is election of officers. At this point, I will declare the nomination procedure open. I will entertain a motion for chair.
I nominate Mr. Santos for chair position.
I respectfully decline that. Thank you, thank you. I will nominate Vivian Gray.
Second.
Any more nominations? Any more nominations? Hearing none. The nominations is closed, and by unanimous consent, Ms. Gray is now the chair. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Ms. Gray so she can conduct the vice chair and secretary election.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry?
I think we just have vice chair, right? No secretary.
No secretary yet.
Just vice chair.
You're waiting.
All right, I still need to get in here. So let me look at yours.
Any nominations?
Thank you. Okay. So are there any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Mr. Jones.
I'd second it.
Is that normal to have?
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
BOR, BOI representation.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay.
Any other?
All right, any other nominations? Nominations are closed. And by
Unanimous consent.
unanimous consent or default,
Yeah.
You're
Yeah, I was gonna say that. By default.
you're it.
All right.
Okay, there's one more nomination that we have to open.
No, that's it.
No secretary?
No secretary, only for the boards.
Oh, I was gonna nominate Nicole.
I was gonna do that too.
All right, so where are we now?
Approval of the minutes.
There's an approval, of- I'm not in my,
You know, approval of the minutes.
yes,
I'll second.
second. Everybody's gonna vote. Do we do okay,
Okay, so Mr. Harris made the motion and Mr. Jones seconded. Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
Yes,
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
thank you. Item 6, public comment. Do we have any?
No requests have been made, and I just want to clarify that for AB 2449, we did not receive any requests for just cause or emergency circumstance.
Okay. All right, we're going to go on to item 7. These are our non-consent items. Do we want to start with item A? I believe it's a presentation. I'm still not in.
Thanks. This one is BG, B grade.
That's what it is?
Oh, B, at LACERA. I know.
Oh, you're using the employee number?
I know.
This is for the county.
Good morning. First, congratulations to Vice Chair Jones and Chair Gray on your appointment to the JOGC, or your new roles to the JOGC, and good morning, committee members. We're pleased to present a draft, excuse me here, let me get situated. We're pleased to present a draft of LACERA's Ethics and Compliance Framework, Program Framework. We presented, if we can go to the next slide, please, Bonnie. Before delving into the agenda, I want to express our appreciation and gratitude to the panel before you, as well as Richard Bendel with Internal Audit, and also our Ethics and Compliance Committee, which is an internal committee at LACERA, for their tireless work. As you can see, in terms of our timeline, we started this work well before 2023. It's been about 2 years in terms of our conversations around ethics and compliance. We added that as one of our pillars to our strategic plan. So we certainly are look forward to presenting some of the information that you'll hear today. Before we delve into the agenda, I'd like to take a few minutes to walk through some important milestones. As you can see, we talked about our strategic planning efforts around ethics and compliance. We also had the Board of Retirement review this particular presentation back on January 3rd. And we feel it's instrumental in our organizational maturation. From a management perspective, before we delve into the agenda, we do want to provide a management perspective on what you're going to hear today. The topic of compliance starts with our organizational culture, specifically building and nurturing a culture of ethics and risk intelligence. We define ethics within the memo and presentation. Essentially, ethics speaks to one's behavior and moral judgment. At LACERA, our behaviors are rooted by 6 core principles: integrity, innovation, inclusivity, accountability, collaboration, and transparency. And I want to take each core value and really summarize it as it relates to ethics. Integrity is the cornerstone of any organization, and it is especially significant in a retirement association such as LACERA. It ensures that all of our actions and decisions are made with honesty and morality. Ethics is the guiding force that fosters integrity. It ensures that every action taken is not just legally right, but also morally justifiable. Innovation is vital for our maturation and adaptation to our obviously changing environment. However, innovation must be guided by ethical considerations to ensure it serves in best interest of our members and does not compromise their rights or benefits. Inclusivity is vital for maturation as well and adaptation to our, Inclusivity is about ensuring fair treatment for all members. Compliance plays a key role here, ensuring that LACERA's policies and practices adhere to laws designed to promote equality and prevent discrimination. Accountability. Accountability is about one's actions. Ethics instills a sense of responsibility, ensuring that everyone in LACERA is accountable for their actions, particularly when making decisions that affect members' benefits. Collaboration involves working together to achieve a common goal. An ethical framework promotes a collaborative environment by fostering trust and mutual respect among members and one another. And lastly, transparency is about being open and honest in all of our dealings. Compliance ensures that LACERA operates with transparency, adhering to regulations that require the disclosure of relevant information, not only to our board, but to our members, staff, and various stakeholders. Within the public pension industry, some of you know NASRA and NCPERS. NCPERS is the National Conference on Public Retirement Systems. They published a paper in 2019 that talked about instituting best practices to drive accountability, consistency, and transparency as it relates to a compliance framework. Also, the National Association of State Retirement Administrators, NASRA, highlights the role of governance and compliance with fiduciary investment and administrative laws in the performance of state and local government retirement systems, i.e. what we do at LACERA on a day-to-day basis. With that, that just kind of gives an overall management perspective on the importance of this topic. I'm going to pass it to Allison to now delve into our overall agenda. Next slide, please.
Good morning, everyone. Before I get started into the agenda, this morning I'm driving into work and I was listening to Beyonce a little bit louder than usual. And my adrenaline was pumping and I was wondering why it's not a normal Thursday. And it's because this program means a lot to me. It speaks to the very core of who I am. And I just want to thank Steve and Louis for inviting me to join this wild ride. So buckle up, let's get to today's agenda. And moving right along, we're already on number 2. Ethics and compliance are strategic concepts. Then that will be followed by LACERA's proposed ethics and compliance program. We will have comments from our ethics and compliance expert, Rebecca Walker. We will get comments from our chief internal auditor, the Richard Bendel, followed by next steps, and then finally management's concluding comments. Next slide, please. Ethics and compliance are strategic concepts. So today we're going to go deep into what that all means for LACERA. Ethics, compliance, and the authority for our proposed program. Next slide, please. Currently, LACERA does not have a centralized ethics and compliance program. Rather, we have a code of ethical conduct, and our various divisions have compliance functions specific to their individual operations. So the strategic purpose of a centralized ethics and compliance program is threefold. 1, to advance a culture of ethical and compliant conduct essential to our fiduciary duty and mission. 2, to serve as a system of risk management. And 3, to establish a process that supports board and management oversight of LACERA's compliance with laws, regulations, policies, procedures, and our code of ethical conduct. Next slide, please. Ethics comes first. While we should not have one without the other, ethics gets top billing because the decisions that we make impact our over 180,000 members, and therefore must be based on what should be done, not simply what can be done. For LACERA, ethics means the application of sound judgment and the diligent practice of our values. So we always, in the words of Spike Lee, do the right thing, especially when it's hard and inconvenient. The thing is, we don't have a choice. Next slide, please. We don't have a choice because every decision that we make must be considered through the lens of our constitutionally mandated fiduciary duty, our mission, our vision, and our values. Every decision we make when handling our members' benefits must comport with the law, regulations, policies, procedures, good intent, moral principles, and sound judgment to do the right thing. Next slide, please. Because if we don't do the right thing, there are substantial ethical risks to the organization, from operational cutting corners that result in inefficient customer service and complaints, all the way to misconduct and violations that at the far end could result in a DOJ investigation. When we are not guided by ethics, standards get blurred, our reputation and work culture are dimmed, risks increase, and we fail to honor our fiduciary duty. A duty that each and every LACERA employee has, from the front counter to the executive office to the boards. Ethics comes first because it is very possible to be compliant, yet still engage in unethical conduct, such as enjoying a benefit that may be permitted according to policy, but not necessary to achieve a business objective and therefore may be unethical. Next slide, please. Research demonstrates that strong ethical culture results in elevated staff morale, superior recruitment, increased staff retention, improved organizational performance, which of course benefits our members, reduced misconduct, legal claims, trustee and management potential liability, and increased board and management oversight of and response to any ethical issues. Next slide, please. Although ethics may be the loftier of the duo, compliance is equally essential to an effective program. Compliance means precisely what it says, adhering to, i.e. complying with, the laws, regulations, policies, and procedures that govern LACERA. A strong culture of compliance minimizes compliance risks and inconsistent adherence to standards. Next slide, please. Research demonstrates that strong compliance structures and systems of controls leads to reduced misconduct, claims, and related costs, better internal reporting, greater board and management oversight of and response to compliance issues, proactive risk identification and mitigation, and consistent enforcement of uniform compliance standards, resulting in an engaged and conscientious workforce. A robust, centralized ethics and compliance program is supported by our constitutionally mandated fiduciary duty to our members. Next slide, please, and take it away, Steve.
Morning. There are several sources of authority that support establishment of a LACERA ethics and compliance program to address the risk and capture the business benefits that Allison just discussed. First, on slide 12, the fiduciary duties of loyalty and prudence in the Constitution and in SERL provide legal authority for the boards and management to have a process to oversee ethics and compliance risks. Oversight, monitoring, and questioning are elements of fiduciary duty that the boards already exercise in many areas. It's a regular part of your business, and they apply equally to ethics and compliance as well. It's also a prudent exercise of fiduciary responsibility for the boards to endorse a formal program to reinforce a tone at the top that ethics and compliance are important. A formal ethics and compliance program will elevate the board's fiduciary oversight by providing a dedicated function within management to allow trustees, the executive office, and other staff to assess ethics and compliance across LACERA. Slide 13, please. Second, the Institute of Internal Auditors published an approach to risk governance that promotes a dedicated ethics and compliance function within management. The IIA's 3 lines model suggests that a mature organization will have a separate ethics and compliance program within management to provide expertise, support, monitoring, and reporting on ethics and compliance. The IIA positions ethics and compliance as the second line to complement the first line of risk-aware work being done in all of LACERA's divisions. The third line is the independent assurance outside of management that internal audit provides. Next slide. Third, the federal sentencing guidelines for organizations and the Department of Justice guidance on those guidelines are the recognized best practice roadmap for the elements of an ethics and compliance program. And so I'm going to pause for a little bit longer on this slide because this is really the foundation of the work that we've done. The DOJ guidance specifically cites the importance that a program create and foster a culture of ethics and compliance. The guidance actually emphasizes this kind of intangible concept of fostering a culture of ethics and compliance, which gets to some of the concepts that Allison was talking about.
Mr. Rice.
Yes.
The federal guidelines, it has the minimum prison time. Is that if somebody violates this ethics, so that those guidelines, what is that going to be, a year in prison or what?
Well, I don't have the exact sentencing hypothetical, but the sentencing guidelines do state that and Rebecca can address this as well, that if an organization has, and we're talking about organizational sentencing now, it can mitigate the organizational liability for a criminal violation if they have a strong ethics and compliance program. And that's the thrust of what the guidelines say with respect to organization, the connection to ethics and compliance.
So that will be the CEO rather than the board.
The program will benefit all of LACERA, the boards, the CEO, and the rest of us.
So we're talking about the civil type limits and things that are put on us if there's a criminal violation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, and with having this program that limits the civil issues.
It does it automatically, but it's a relevant factor. And that's the emphasis that's placed here. Is it's a factor that's in mitigation, and in any sentencing there are a variety of mitigating factors, background, and so forth. And ethics and compliance would be a strong mitigating factor.
Well, if you ever want to get this board's attention, just put in federal sentencing guidelines in your presentation, and it'll perk everybody up right away. Thank you very much for that.
It worked.
Yeah,
The Department of Justice guidance puts forward 3 questions as relevant to assessing whether an organization's ethics and compliance program is worthy of the incentives provided in the guidelines. The first question is the program well designed? This question goes to the elements, the activities that are inside the program: risk assessment, a way of reviewing policies and procedures, training and communication, reporting, an investigation process, and third-party ethics and compliance risk management. The second question is the program adequately incentivized and resourced? This is a key element to a successful program, and that includes the commitment to the program that comes from the board, comes from the executive office, that this is a program that the organization stands behind at its highest levels. It also includes adequate resourcing in terms of the structure and budgeting of the program, and adequate independent authority. It also includes consequence management. These are the things that make a program adequately resourced. And finally, does the program work in practice? And this is the success of the program in mitigating the risk and creating a strong culture of ethics and compliance. So the program should be built for continuous improvement. It should have assessment, both self-assessment and external assessment. It should make sure that investigation of misconduct actually occurs, and that there is identification, analysis, and remediation of misconduct. Our LACERA program has been built on the foundation of these 3 questions and the other information that is in the DOJ guidance. Next slide. Fourth, government investigations of public pensions. This is a great segue from the previous slide on the DOJ guidance and the federal sentencing guidelines. Government investigations of public pension systems demonstrate the consequences that can follow from not having a strong ethics and compliance program. These are real-world consequences of federal or state grand jury investigations. For example, on this slide, we cite a SEC investigation of potential securities law investigations against the retirement systems of Alabama relating to the use of material non-public information, or MNPI. In that case, the retirement system received MNPI. Before that MNPI went public, the system traded on that information, and after the information went public, the value of their investments went up by $7,000. $700,000, thereby triggering this investigation. This was a situation where the system faced real potential prosecution risk by the SEC and the Department of Justice. In the end, the SEC determined not to prosecute, but instead to issue this public report, a very strong public report that explains that while a prosecution was not being made, the issues were very serious, and putting forth a strong statement by the SEC as to the importance of appropriate policies, procedures, and training to prevent this sort of thing. Next slide. Finally, on slide 16, authority is provided by the growing pattern among peer systems to create ethics and compliance programs. This trend includes 37X systems, our fellow county systems, other California systems, CalPERS, CalSTRS, SDSERS, and national systems that we regard as peers. And these are systems that LACERA refers to as peers for best practices and against which to measure ourselves. And all of these systems on this slide have various sorts of ethics and compliance programs. The issues of ethics and compliance are of increasing interest among California systems. For example, CalPERS, which is the California Association of Public Retirement Systems. It includes all California pension systems, not just the 37X systems, has recently added regular meetings of a compliance roundtable to its schedule, and we've been participating in those roundtables. Some of the programs on this slide are less than a couple years old. Others then have evolved over a number of years. And we'll come back later to this list of systems to show how our reporting structure compares to the reporting structure that exists in all of these systems. Moving on to slide 17, the next section of our presentation will discuss the details of LACERA's proposed program and charter. Slide 18, please. Creation of a formal LACERA ethics and compliance program has been under discussion for several years and has received particular focus in the past 10 months or so since the Board of Retirement elevated the issue to being a goal in its strategic plan. The work of staff in trying to achieve that goal and advance that goal since the Board of Retirement acted last July has included engagement of Ms. Walker as our Ethics and Compliance Counsel. It's included development of the proposed charter that you have today, and it's included taking the issues to the Board of Retirement's Operations Oversight Committee and to the board itself, where the board commented, provided some input, and advanced the charter to this committee. In addition, not on this slide, but very important, is the amount of time that staff have spent at many levels in receiving education and training on what ethics and compliance means in terms of implementing a program. And that education and training manifests itself in the charter and in this presentation and in future presentations that will be made on this subject. Next slide. One of the comments that the Board of Retirement made was to provide a clear organizational chart, and that's shown on this slide. The ethics and compliance function is the second box up from the bottom in the middle. That the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer, will also call it the CECO, and the Ethics and Compliance Officer will be located in the legal division to take advantage of synergies with legal, given that LACERA's operations are heavily subject to law and policy. However, the CEO will function independently. The CECO report administratively to Chief Counsel, but only administratively. The functional reporting lines will run to a renamed audit committee and to the CEO. The CEO will be the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer's appointing authority and will hire, fire, evaluate, and discipline the CEO, but with the input of the audit committee. The CECO's annual work plan will be approved by the CEO and the audit committee. Reports will also be provided to the boards, including the CEO's risk assessment, the annual program report, and other reports. The CECO will have the ability to independently report at any time in their discretion, not going through Chief Counsel, not even going through the CEO, directly to the Audit Committee, to the boards, and to the CEO as well, and the Executive Office on specific matters as the CEO herself deems appropriate.
I have a question, Mr. Rice. So let's assume, well, let me see if I understand this correctly. So this particular new committee will be part of the legal division, or reported to the chief counsel. But what about if there is an alleged ethics violation by one of the attorneys in the legal division?
Yes.
That concerns me. And also with regards to the CEO, what about if it involves an allegation against the CEO? I'm in support of this. I just want to make sure that the members of that committee are able to, I'm going to use the word supervise for lack of better words, the entire organization, including the CEO and others. And then also talk to me about how would that function with the board if there's an allegation against a particular board member, ethics violation, how that will operate.
Which committee are you referring to, the staff committee or the board?
Well, the board committee, so I understand it correctly, it will be the audit committee,
Yes.
right? So the staff committee.
The staff, okay.
Yeah, I understood the question to relate to the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer
Yes.
and the Ethics and Compliance Office, which is located in legal. And what if there's what if they need to investigate in their independent authority, the legal office, the CEO, or a trustee? That is an issue that concerned us as well in developing this charter. And so the charter explicitly addresses this issue and puts forward that the CEO and Chief Counsel will not be involved in any matter as to which they have a conflict of interest. In the event of that sort of conflict, the CEO will consult directly with the audit committee or the boards instead of consulting with Chief Counsel or with the CEO. In the event the CECO has a conflict, which is also a possibility, the Chief Counsel or the CEO, if Chief Counsel has a conflict, will then confer with the audit committee and as to the proper handling of the matter, which might involve, for example, engaging independent counsel, as has been done in the past by the boards, to handle an investigation as opposed to having it run internally. So we have addressed in the charter these various conflict scenarios where Chief Counsel may be conflicted or the legal office, the CEO may be conflicted. In the case of a trustee, the boards have experience with this issue where a trustee would be recused from any board consideration of this issue. And in fact, the regulations of the Board of Retirement and the regulations of the Board of Investment anticipate this issue as well. So these scenarios are covered, and it's a core value mentioned at least twice in the proposed charter that this program must be free of conflicts and interference. Otherwise, the whole purpose is really undermined, and this culture of ethics and compliance that we're trying to build will fail because the body that's supposed to be the unimpeachable ethics and compliance staff body will not be trustworthy.
Right, so I just tried to be the devil's advocate here. So I get it. So the CEO, it's in violation. Obviously, the boards can fire the CEO. The chief counsel or an attorney, there's a mechanism under the CEO's authority to deal with appropriately with whatever violation it is, up to including discharge. But what about the board member? You cannot fire me. It's something you can do to me.
The only thing that can be done, and this already is this is the only remedy that really exists, and it's under the regulations of the boards, is censure. And there's a process described in the regulations for handling a censure investigation and vote.
And, okay.
Ms. Martin has a question.
Thank you. And thank you, Trustee Santos. That really helped me because I had a lot of questions about that. Just for clarity, this is a new unit that you've established. Do we have a chief ethics and compliance officer now or no?
No, we don't. This is a program that we are proposing that the boards create and authorize. We are not going to finish the job description until we know from the boards what the scope of the program is, because the job description will follow from the scope of the program. What we're doing right now is foundational work, and in consultation with our ethics and compliance council, the idea of laying the foundation is an important step. So we don't have right now a CECO. We don't right now have an ethics and compliance function office. Right now, ethics and compliance in this organization are handled in various places in the organization. They're handled in the legal office. Quality assurance deals with issues on the benefits side. Investments does some compliance work. FASD, it's in very internal audit is that independent form of assurance. But that's not what we're talking about here. What we're doing is something new that's complementary to internal audit, as we'll get into later. So what we're talking about now is foundational work.
So what is the time frame for this? Will this fiscal year we plan on doing this if everything
Yes,
goes
so
smoothly?
the plan is that we will get through the boards and the audit committee and have a fully formed program by the end of this fiscal year.
Right.
In looking at the calendar, there's a possibility it may lapse over into July, but our goal is to get it done this fiscal year. In other words, by June 30th, we would bring the job description back to you very quickly. That would need to go to the Board of Supervisors. Hopefully they would recognize the importance of a position like this, and then we would go into the hiring process.
Good luck with that.
We're going to be budgeting this. We're going to be putting into the budget that you all will be seeing in maybe even this month or next month, a budget for the ethics and compliance officer, which includes and the office that person is going to oversee. That includes a half year, 6 months of actual activity. So that's our stretch. That's our ambitious goal, and we have the support of the executive office, and we're seeking the support of the boards to move forward with this, and that's our timetable.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Kehoe, did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna highlight actually what you had said, that this is foundational and we anticipate changes as we get the actual executive in the seat and starts expanding on the policies in place and the charter and all of that, so that was just what I was gonna mention.
Can I just make a point of clarification in terms of what you'll see in the budget? So in terms of this particular program, what we're going to do is identify the positions. I'm not sure that we'd be ready to actually fund the positions. But we are going to request authorization to go to the Board of Supervisors once this is completed for ordinance positions in order to fill these. And it requires the job descriptions and job analysis and the whole 9 yards. And so if you don't see the funding, the actual dollars in the budget, you'll see a request for authority to go to the Board of Supervisors to formulate and put this together. Funding for it would more than likely be done in the mid-year budget adjustment. I think that's probably a better time. Like, I don't want to put something in a budget where I know I'm not going to spend the money. And so those are the discussions that we're having, but we're fully supportive of this particular, the executive office is fully supportive of this particular path moving forward. And we do believe that it's a very, very important component in addition to the to LACERA as an organization.
Ms.
Quick
Gray, can I
question.
ask?
Okay.
So I understand that the dollars and cents will be added to the budget at a later time, but I just request that as we have these discussions, that the cost is included in those discussions. So although we may not be approving the actual budget itself, we as a board, before approving this, needs to know what the costs are gonna be on an annual basis.
Right, we will definitely have an estimate for you. It's just difficult at this point, what level, this level, the level that these particular positions should take, should be placed on is what we're struggling with because we don't have those descriptions yet. And so we also need to do some due diligence in terms of what others are paying and so on and so forth. So we need to make sure that we have to make the argument and present the facts to the CEO's office as well in terms of creating this. So that will definitely be a portion of it. So we'll give you a range in terms of what we think it's going to cost, not an exact dollar amount, if that's sufficient.
I have a quick question also. Will that approval go to JOGC first or directly to the Board of Retirement?
Which approval?
The approval, you said you were putting together the cost, et cetera, for the CECO.
Yeah,
And so would the approval go first to JOGC or directly to the BOR?
The creation of the classification is a joint board, has to be approved by joint boards, as with all LACERA classifications. So that would come to this committee for a recommendation to the boards.
And that would be before you go to the Board of Supervisors?
Yes.
correct. Yes.
Chair Gray and Trustee Keough and others, with respect to the cost issue, even though we don't have a funded position yet, we are on advice of counsel, and to support the independence of this program, even as it's developing, we've created a separate account within the legal division for ethics and compliance expenditures. So the cost of the consultant, the educational costs that we've incurred, some educational materials we've purchased have all been segregated, and that will continue to be the case. So it's not it's within the legal division, but it's being segregated in a separate account. And that actually was brought to you in the mid-year budget adjustment. We began that process with the segregation of the expenses even last December.
That's right.
I want to finally on this slide, the box at the very bottom is the Staff Ethics Compliance Committee, and this is an important facet of the program. This is an advisory body to the CECO and will also assist in building a culture of ethics and compliance by promoting the program and its initiatives throughout the organization. We already have that committee right now. We converted our pre-existing staff policy committee into an ethics and compliance committee. So that's actually functioning now, and it is a very engaged group of people that are functioning at a very high level. As I mentioned earlier, we'll have a slide later that's going to compare this proposed reporting structure with other systems. If we can move on to slide 22. Previous slide. In addition to the roles of the audit committee, the boards, the CECO, managers and supervisors and staff members also have important roles in supporting this program. It's a whole organization program, and will only succeed if it is ingrained from the boards through the committees, through the executive office, to managers, supervisors, and staff. So managers and supervisors will have a duty to communicate and model ethical standards, be compliant, and promote a culture of ethics and compliance by providing a space for reporting. Staff members themselves are obligated to perform their day-to-day work with the highest ethical standards and to follow all laws, regulations, policies, procedures, and business practices that are required. Staff also will have a duty to report concerns, and this issue of reporting is something that will be a important element of training and communication. Next slide. This is a slide I was referring to earlier, showing the reporting lines in other systems. In some systems, the general counsel is also the chief compliance officer, so the roles of counsel and chief compliance officer are merged. The San Diego City system has that approach, as well as the teachers' retirement system of Texas, quite a large system, and the state of Michigan Investment Board. We don't think that's the model to follow at LACERA, because we want to have, we value the independence of the chief ethics and compliance officer. We think that's a critical value here that we want to promote. In other systems, OSERS, SDSERA, CalPERS, CalSTRS, Iowa, and the state of SWIB, the state of Wisconsin Investment Board, compliance reports to the general counsel. And in those organizations, the general counsel has a large amount of oversight and supervisory responsibility. We're actually not taking that model either. The role of the chief counsel and the legal office will be to provide administrative support and to provide some level of administrative oversight, but the program is not functionally reporting to the legal office. There are systems that take a different approach that don't involve legal. Some have compliance reporting directly to the executive officers or CEO, and that would be the Contra Costa County system is that way. The Florida system, the Oregon system, and the Virginia system are that way as well. There are other systems where compliance is overseen by the DCEO or the COO. Mass Prim, Tennessee, and Washington State are examples of that. One thing I want to point out is even in some of these models, and Mass Prim and Tennessee are examples of this, even though the direct reporting line is to the CEO or to the DCEO, there's a dotted line that also runs to general counsel. That's not true in all these systems, but in the case of Mass Prim and Tennessee, that is the case. So the system that we're proposing is more on the left-hand side of the slide, but it's not all the way over to the left side. It's really kind of in the middle, where we have an administrative role for legal, because we think in discussions with the executive offices that's an appropriate place for the function to be. But the strong functional reporting lines are to the CEO and to the audit committee. So it really straddles this line and struck a balance that we think will provide maximum internal synergies for the program to succeed, but also really positions strongly, even in the organizational chart, this function as independent.
I just want to point out that I think when we're discussing the program, that we should highlight the direct report to the CEO and to the boards, because you just mentioned that we're kind of on the left side, or possibly in the middle. I think we're more on the right side, because the administrative functions have absolutely nothing to do with the actual reporting procedures. I understand that, when making budget requests or doing things like that internally, we're going to administratively have it under the umbrella of legal. But when it comes to actual, rubber to the road kind of things, all of that is going to be through the CEO or through the boards directly, depending upon the level of the issue at hand. So I just highlight that because I think that I don't think we should be even in the middle. I think we should be on the right, and I think we should highlight that we're on the right. And yes, functionally, we have some administrative components, that they're not an independent, division within LACERA, but that's really internal talking. I think externally, and when we're presenting this externally, it's a direct report to the CEO and to the boards.
Yeah, that's an accurate characterization of the organizational chart that we put forward in the earlier slide.
And thank you very much for the revised organizational chart. It was much better.
I do want to give credit to Bonnie for that. Bonnie actually said
Thank you,
that,
Bob.
Thank you.
and it is very good.
I have one question, following up from what Mr. Kehoe said. I think we are far on the right, but you had stated, Mr. Kehoe, that we'd want compliance overseen by the CEO or the boards and the board.
Definitely, I mean, it's hired and fired by the CEO, but and the boards, because I think that I think without question, the chief ethics officer should feel that they can go directly to any board member without any type of issue, any committee member, anything, and be able to request or make comments. They could be able to come into the boardroom, raise concerns, those type of things. So it's definitely it's a partnership, but.
And sorry, that triggered another question. So, I'm sorry, you
Go
finished?
ahead. No, I'm done.
Yeah, sorry. Mr. Kehoe, you said hire and fired by the CEO. Did I answer that correctly? Shouldn't it be hired and fired by the audit committee or this new committee?
Our proposal is that the CEO is the appointing authority, and so will be responsible for hiring, firing, discipline, and performance evaluation, but only with the prior consultation with and input and direction of the audit committee. So there has to be alignment there. But in terms of the county salary ordinance, the appointing authority will be the CEO. But it's a joint, yes, the audit committee, that's important because it needs that independence outside of the executive office.
Right. And so the hiring is done through the committee then?
The process will be, the CEO will oversee that and communicate with the audit committee as to the appropriate process to give the committee an appropriate role. But the program is structured explicitly in the charter that CEO appointing authority, hire, fire, discipline, and performance evaluation, but only with the input and involvement of the audit committee.
On concept. I think that the audit committee should have the ultimate decision making.
We will add the word consent to the charter. That word consent isn't in there, but it's implied. The authority is joint.
Isn't there some legal issues on that? The only direct report to the board is the CEO, correct? And we specifically structured that, even with our CIO, that it's not direct to the board, correct?
There are only two employees where the appointing authority isn't the CEO, and that's the CEO himself and also the chief audit executive, which reports administratively. But we a few years ago, we revised the salary ordinance to provide that the audit committee and for certain issues, the boards are the appointing authority of the chief audit executive.
Then why not go in that direction with the ethics officer? So why not go in that direction with the ethics officer? I was under the impression that there was legal things, and that's why we only kept it under the CEO. I didn't know that the CAO was appointed directly by the boards. So then why don't we do that with the chief ethics officer?
The chief ethics and compliance officer is a management position. So since it's in the management chain of command, it was the judgment that we made that it would be the appointing authority, in essence, would be shared between the CEO and the audit committee because it's a dual report.
I think we should reconsider that, especially with the powers and authorities and everything we just said, the expectation of reporting directly to the boards. That completely removes any of concerns on the ability to go directly to the boards if they're appointed by the boards. So I'm just one voice, but I would say that we need to revise that in the charter.
I agree, and I mean, we have the same issue with the CIO, right? I mean, the boards have the authority to hire the CIO the boards have delegated that authority to the CEO in consultation with the Board of Investments. So it should be similar.
Yes, and that's the role. We mimicked exactly the process that's followed with the CIO.
Okay, I'm a little, okay.
So it's the same, so just let me make one more point. So the charter will state that then, that it is the boards who have the authority. However, the boards, or the Board of Retirement in particular, well, boards, right? Will delegate the authority to the audit committee and the CEO, because there's gotta be a delegation there somewhere, because the boards are the only authority here.
Cyril provides that the boards are the appointing authority for all staff. Many years ago, the boards delegated all that power to the CEO. And then a few years ago, the boards reclaimed a specific authority as to the chief audit executive. And then we have policies for the CIO and for chief counsel that establish the role of the board, while the CEO is still the official appointing authority. Those appointments were only made with the involvement of the boards.
So I don't like gray areas. I like to have this very clear. So it's very clear that the CEO is appointed by the boards. It's very clear now to me that the CAO is appointed by the boards or by the audit committee.
When you say CAO, you mean
The
CCO?
Chief Audit Executive, yep.
Ethics.
No,
Richard Bendel.
Richard. And then the CIO is actually appointed by the CEO with the consultation of the boards.
The Board of
The Board of
Investments.
Investment.
The Board of
correct.
Investments.
So we need to decide that the recommendation is that the CEO selects and appoints the chief compliance officer with the consultation of the board. But I think what my recommendation is that we reconsider that and that we move in the direction of the way that we do the chief audit executive, which is appointed by the audit committee with the, of course, support of the CEO. So it's a direct reporting to the audit committee, and that way we have a clear chain of command that the audit committee is in charge of the ethics officer and the entire board, both boards, and then, of course, functionally reporting to the CEO when there's issues and things like that comes up, and administratively working with you, Steve, when they need budget and funding and all of that stuff. To me, that's a very clear chain, especially when we're talking about an ethics position, that we don't want any type of influence within the organization where that the chief ethics officer does not feel like they can go directly to the board on an issue and risk, their future job or anything like that. So that's my recommendation on that. We revise that with the charter.
Through the chair, I think it might be good to have Rebecca Walker comment, and also the management team.
Before we go there, I have just one question. Mr. Kehoe, in your suggestion, you want to go after they've gone through audit CEO directly to the JOGC or both, or each board?
Okay, so for the actual charter, once the charter is adopted in the way that we select the item, I would say that the chief, that the audit committee of the board is the one who would be running the subcommittee to do the whole selection process and everything like that, and ultimately make the recommendation for the hire
To the boards?
to the boards.
Okay.
If I may, to the chair, just briefly in terms of this discussion, as we talked about reporting structure for the better part of a year, and in looking at, even the recruitment aspect, Chair Gray, Chair Kehoe, we thought that, to your point, Chair Kehoe, having that direct reporting line to the CEO is appealing to a candidate, in terms of how they would report organizationally and still have that functional reporting to the audit committee. And also, when we looked at the 3 lines model, we did classify this as a management function, the compliance and ethics piece, and they will be more embedded operationally than, let's say, an independent internal audit committee that's, that really sits more outside. So in terms of reporting structure, I think our recommendation would be to have it report directly to the CEO with that consent that you referenced in conjunction with the audit committee, because I think from a recruitment standpoint, that would also be appealing for a potential candidate as they look at kind of their function. Because I think right now, and this is where Rebecca can speak to, whether the chief compliance officer reports just industry-wise directly to a board or an audit committee. Maybe with
Yeah,
that.
sure. Well, typically, there is direct reporting to the general counsel and or CEO with a line to the audit committee. And it is critical, as you all have pointed out, for independence, right? So for the most serious issues and an investigation of an allegation against a senior leader, for example, that line to the audit committee becomes very important, but also just for the check-ins. Are you getting the support from senior leadership? Do you have the resources that you need? Do you have the tools that you need to really implement an effective program? It's really that line to the audit committee that makes any program more effective, independent, robust. So it is definitely critical. I would say in publicly held companies, what you typically see is that the leadership of the organization, the CEO and or general counsel, would hire with the consultation of the audit committee. That doesn't mean you can't do it differently here, obviously, but also that there's a provision in many program charters that says that the chief compliance officer cannot be fired, the positions cannot be changed significantly without the consultation, pre-approval, consent of the audit committee. So typically what I see actually is maybe a slightly different methodology with respect to hiring versus firing. So you typically have the management hiring the chief compliance officer, maybe with consultation of the audit committee, but often not in practice. But with respect to termination, there often does have to be the consent of the audit committee. And that's, again, to protect independence. I think you could, I don't know, the sort of regulatory requirements with respect to the laws in California related to pension funds. So that might change the analysis. But I think you could do it really either way here. But typically I do see the hiring being done by management. The firing is when, that decision is when the board really does need to be involved to protect independence.
I have a quick question for you, Rebecca. You initially said that the CECO would report to legal first and then to the CEO. What we're trying to do, and my understanding of this, is have the chief compliance officer, because they are going to be housed in legal, they would only get advice from chief counsel, if I understood our organizational chart there.
Yeah, I think that the structure as proposed is they would get advice and really assistance and support from the chief counsel. And this is all still in development, and these comments are just hugely helpful, I think, to the organization. I've helped hundreds of organizations implement compliance programs, and I don't know that I've ever seen as engaged an oversight board. So I think it's wonderful. But yes.
We are very engaged.
Yes.
And what I was trying to figure out is where, in fact, does our audit committee come in? Because in terms of reporting concerns, hiring and firing, we still need the audit committee involved.
Yes, and the audit committee would also hopefully be involved in just general, regular oversight of the work that the chief ethics and compliance officer is doing, the design and implementation of the compliance program. So typically at organizations, the chief ethics and compliance officer would report to the audit committee on a regular basis, quarterly, at every scheduled meeting, and let the audit committee know, what is going on with respect to the compliance program. Have allegations of misconduct been received? How have they been handled? Has policies been revised? Has training been conducted? And just sort of afford the audit committee the opportunity to really oversee the compliance program.
Sure.
Could we go back to slide 19, please,
just
just while we're discussing this?
And I have a question for Mr. Rice. In terms of what Rebecca has just gone over, is that particularly with personnel issues, in our JOGC charter, there is something that we talk about that the JOGC reviews. Is that in conflict with what you're proposing now?
No, the JOGC will not be part of this structure. They're not on this organizational chart. This is a function that will report to the CEO, the audit committee, and the boards.
Chair Gray, if I may briefly. So with respect to the org chart, you can see that there's a functional reporting to the audit committee and the chief executive officer. I think to Trustee Kehoe's point earlier, we're standing this program up. This is our initial, evolution, and I think it's important to surround, this program with support in the legal office, through the executive office. As we mature, I think there may be an evolution where it's a different structure that we set in place as we get the program stood up in the next 2 to 3 years. So what we would recommend is maybe a reevaluation as we onboard a chief ethics and compliance officer in consult with the audit committee. And then as the program is up and running, we know there's going to be changes. It's going to evolve. We don't know the individual. They're going to have their ideas. And then at that point, there's going to be a constant evaluation. Well, we may change. The reporting structure may change. It may, be what we have with the chief audit executive, or it may stay with the CEO. But I think it allows us initially to kind of build up that program and have that level of support.
Madam Chair, question.
Jones.
So if I'm listening to the nuances correctly, then, Louis, the expectation as you read through the deck, and then the kind of internal benefit that you expect to get from the program is also part of the reason why you have it designed, as opposed to the audit committee, which is kind of intentionally external and kind of runs on its own kind of type thing. There's some internal benefits to having at least the initial grouping, if I'm listening to it right and I'm interpreting what I kind of read through last night. And so part of what you're articulating here, at least initially, and I get what you're saying definitely for sure, is that part of that evolution is having it more embedded, at least initially, for some of those kind of cultural, behavioral benefits, at which time then maybe you then begin to draw some distance between some independence and other things like that. Would that be accurate, or help me?
Exactly. There'll be a significant operational lift in terms of the activities of the program and just being able to build the program activities. So a significant amount of internal operational communication and engagement. Yeah.
Just your previous point with the recruitment stuff, I wouldn't want to take a job where my functional reporting may or may not change in the future. So I think we have to decide where that's going to end.
Now.
And I don't see how that's going to evolve differently. I can see how policies and procedures, responsibility, key staff, those kind of things, but I don't think the reporting structure. So I think we have to decide where it is. And I hearing everything and hearing the whole conversation, at the end of the day, I just want to make sure that the chief ethics officer does not feel at any point where they can't come and openly speak to the board if they have concerns about something going on. And obviously I'm talking about major type issues and things like that. And sometimes that gets in the way, right? If they do have concerns about their future and things like that. So I do think that there is a middle ground, just from hearing from our consultant, that perhaps if we want to keep it the way that essentially we do the CIO's position, where it's a direct report to the CEO, but the exit element is a part of the audit committee. It's codified in the charter that the audit committee is a part of the actual selection process as well, or, is engaged in the selection process. So I think what we need, from my perspective, is a tightening up of the charter to make it very clear that, yes, on a day-to-day basis, they're going to the CEO and getting, conversations and things like that. But when there's a major issue and things, that they have the protection and the ability to go directly to the board on issues and not have to worry about their future within the organization.
And I support Mr. Kehoe on that.
So can, I guess, I hear what you're saying, and I think that there's definitely something that we can, put together so that it satisfies, making sure that the audit committee is part of the selection process. I think the intent, that's always been the intention. So it's something that we were going to incorporate regardless if we got direction or not. So it's important that the audit committee is involved, through whether they want to be involved in the interview process, they want to provide input, they want to see resumes, what have you. That's perfectly fine. I think that one of the concerns that I have, and Louis mentioned it, is that we view this as a management function, quite frankly. It's supposed to make us better, it's supposed to identify and root out some of the unethical behavior that we hopefully never see, but it does happen. And so one of the concerns I have is that, that there has to be, the CEO has to be involved and has to determine, at least be given the opportunity to say, yes, you need to take this to the board, or this doesn't rise to the level that it has to go to the board, right? That I have, that I have to make sure that, because, there's going to be a lot of HR questions, right? There's privacy issues that are involved and so on and so forth. And so those are decisions that I actually have to make every day in terms of, what are we doing about discipline? What are we doing about, these types of things? But ethical behavior is something that we're going to definitely report out because we have a transparency value. My intention is to be open and honest about, all these things and report those things out. But I think it's important for my ability to manage the organization to be able to have discussions about, things that are happening in the organization with this particular individual so that we can determine jointly whether or not it's something that, do we need more investigation? Do I have to do it at this particular point in time? There's a lot of timing issues, and when does that happen? And so I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we're taking this very, very seriously. We do plan on reporting. We do plan on asking the audit committee to be part of the selection process and so on and so forth. But, from a practical standpoint, at least from my experience over, a very long career, it is difficult sometimes to figure out, when is the right time to go to the board and ask them, hey, we need some guidance on this, right?
Sure,
So I think that's what I'm concerned about. My preference is that there is a direct reporting relationship with the CEO's office, which I think we all agree.
Mr. Santos, I don't think that we're trying to tie your hands.
Okay.
We never. Oh, Mr. Crime, not you, Mr. Santos. Although we could tie your hands. We're not trying to tie your hands. And you use a statement of reporting out. That's important to us as a board. Correct. Also. I think Mr. Harris has a question.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm clear. When I was reading this thing, I got the impression that the audit committee was basically being subsumed by the audit compliance risk and ethics committee. Am I wrong in that? If I am, then where's the audit committee in this functional chart?
Chair Gray and Trustee Harrison and trustees, that's correct. The audit committee will become the audit compliance risk and ethics committee. the Chief Ethics Compliance Officer will report to the CEO and to the Audit Committee. The charter, I want, as far as this discussion.
Can I
that
just,
we-
as a point of order, there's a bunch of people in the queue, so
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that
so
the
I
board
wanted
needs
to-
to have an
That's
opportunity to respond.
Okay, so,
I have
Next.
just one more comment if I could.
okay, go ahead.
I'm just wondering then, if that's true, and I like that, that makes sense, shouldn't there be a straight line? If we want to make sure that the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer has a direct access to the board, shouldn't there be a solid line from that position right to the Board of Investment? They don't have to go through the audit, they don't have to go through the chief executive, they can come right to the Board of Investment. And right now, it says, nope, they got to go through one of those two to get to the Board of Retirement, Board of Investments.
In answer to that, the line isn't on there. The charter says specifically that the CEO in their discretion has the ability to go to the boards.
Okay, all right. I'm just thinking it probably should be on the chart, but okay, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Ms. Mee?
Thank you. I'm enjoying this very engaging discussion. I think it's a healthy, conversation that we have. From what I'm hearing is that I agree that this group, right, this new group, new function, absolutely need to be independence in the judgment, independence in, they're overseeing the entire organization, every single one, right? So they need to have the independence of having a voice. And then when they have there's a big issue, and I'm totally with Trustee Kehoe, they need to have the freedom to come to the board, because that's the oversight function there as well, the caring. And then the oversight function is with the board ultimately, right? So they would help the board to oversee the organization better when they have the direct report, when they have the freedom of judgment, and then with their judgment, when the issue is big enough, they can come to the board. Yeah, that's all.
All right, Ms. Martin.
I was next.
Oh, you're next. Okay, so we go
Sorry.
this way. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
I'll be quick. So number one, we're not talking about a management position, we're talking about an executive position.
Yes.
Big difference.
Right.
Number two, when that executive position works with the CEO or any member, they should be seeking advice and not direction. There should be absolutely no point where the chief ethics officer is told that they cannot take something to the board. And the only way that we could fix that is by eliminating that line to the CEO, making it a dotted line, and having the direct reporting to the Audit Compliance Committee, in addition to both boards. I think it's pretty clear as part of this conversation, that's the direction that we need to go. We do the same thing for our chief audit officer, and I don't see, there's no problems with the management and oversight is able to work out. But I know, I don't need to call you up here for comments, but at the end of the day, I know that it works functionally how that's put together. I know I'm waffling back and forth, but I'm back in the mindset of having this charter be directly appointed by the audit committee, and of course, functionally working with the CEO and chief counsel and everything else.
So are you asking for a dotted line advisory for the EC officer to go directly to the board at some point?
I would
No,
say
why-
functionally, they report to the audit committee, and administratively, they work with the CEO and the chief counsel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Earlier, you had said you didn't want them not to feel free to come directly to the boards. So if that's the case, then do we need, this is going to be tic-tac-toe here, do we need a dotted line to the board on this chart?
Yes, yep, and I think that we were told that that's in the charter, we just need to fix the graphics on it.
Do we need dotted?
Not dotted,
Solid?
it's
Well, I
solid, yeah,
mean-
it's solid.
Going
Yeah.
by this chart.
Okay.
We
I
need
just want to make sure,
dotted.
because I'm with you. They need to be able to come right to the board.
So that would be dotted down at the
That says
bottom.
advisory. Dotted here is advisory. That to me is not advisory.
We'll let Bonnie fix it.
Yeah, we can get that. We can get that later.
Ms. Martin?
Okay, Trustee Kehoe. I was going to comment on your last proposal, because I think it's fine the way it is as long as there is a line that comes to us or to the board. Whatever it looks like, yeah. But to codify the fact that, and making it very clear that the CEO will consult, whatever the word is, with the audit committee. But now you've sort of switched it up. I don't, I'm sort of confused, I'll admit, but at the same time, I think we're all working on in the same direction, because we want this person to be able to have access to all three of these people on top, right? All of us. And if it's dotted or if it's straight, I don't know, does it really matter? I guess that's my point. As long as this person has access directly to the board. And as the audit committee, I don't know if they have the time and the energy to do a whole recruitment on their own, I mean, in most cases, the CEOs do that and then bring, the top 3 candidates or whatever to the audit committee. And so I'm fine with that. I just think that I'd like to move on from this point, because I really think we're all saying the same thing.
Well, there is a little
Yeah,
difference.
there's some nuances.
Yeah,
Well, the
a
one,
big nuance.
you mean the dotted versus the straight
Oh,
line?
no, talking
What?
about, when you said that the audit committee doesn't have time and they'll just bring us the 3.
Top 3, yeah.
Yeah. Is that how you want it to work?
I don't know how it works now. I'm on the audit committee. I don't know how it works now. I know how audit committees function because I lived in that world for a long time. I don't know how your audit committee functions. That's the difference.
But if I may, Madam Chair, I think it's really important to distinguish between the CAA position and the compliance position, in that the compliance position is a management function. It's a second line function that supports management. And so the hiring, the reporting, from my perspective, it's different than the CAE. The independence of the CAE is critical, and that's why it's set up this way. And I think reporting to the boards, we have that. And this, Mr. Rice mentioned that's in the charter as it is. But I think the CAE is independent, and that's why you have that structure. This is a different position. It's a management function, and I think that's really critical to why it's handled differently.
All right, Mr. Jones?
That was my clarification. I was going to ask Rebecca, actually, just in that kind of sense, because if I'm hearing, again, I get your point of emphasis, but from my initial reading and looking at this, I wasn't viewing the chief ethics officer as being a requested role equal to the same independent executive stature of the audit committee person. So your articulation was a new position. I just wanted to know from your role, because again, in reading the initial proposal, I got the management function intention out of it. And so to me, that's the more serious nuance. Are we talking about it at the independent chief audit officer, or are we talking it more like, more of just a management executive function that 90% of the work is going to be done in the regular order of what Santos does, and in the 10% of it where it rises to something meaningful, then that's where the freedom for the reporting structure to the boards happens.
Thank you. I think that is such an important question. Would it be possible, Bonnie, just to go to slide 26 for a minute? Because I think what maybe has gotten a little bit lost in this discussion is the breadth of responsibilities of a chief ethics and compliance officer. So you all have very appropriately honed in on a very small percentage of the work that's going to be. It's critically important that the independence be there, so that when, God forbid, there are allegations against senior leaders or very serious allegations of fraud or the big picture stuff, the big ticket items, those have to go to the audit committee quickly or to the boards quickly. There has to be an avenue, and that is certainly provided for in the charter. But 95% of the work that's being performed by this office is operationalizing compliance systems for the organization. It is conducting compliance training, drafting good policies, communicating about policies, helping leadership message about ethics and compliance, ethical culture. It's performing culture surveys. It's working closely with audit and HR and the business to try to ensure that the policies are operationalized into the way the organization works. So the vast majority of the work of this function really is management. It's trying to operationalize compliance policies and systems. It requires a lot of collaboration with the other functions and with the business and with the CEO and with the chief counsel. But it really is about how do we increase awareness? How do we prevent misconduct from happening? How can we monitor and assess the corporate culture and the level of compliance of the organization? And then also the very important providing avenues for employees to report suspected misconduct, investigating suspected misconduct, escalating issues to the board as appropriate. All of that is also very important, but it's not the majority of the work that's being performed by this function. So I do think it's important to think about the entire program and all of the different responsibilities. And these responsibilities listed on this slide come from the guidance that Steve and Allison spoke about earlier. This is from the sentencing guidelines for organizations, the Department of Justice guidance, and also just from 30 years of practice in organizations implementing compliance programs. This is what's really required to have a good system to prevent and detect and respond to misconduct. So there are lots of different components, and it's just a terrific point. Trustee Jones, thank you for pointing this out, that there's a lot more to the job, really, than the very important reporting to the audit committee.
Mr. Santos, and then we'll take a quick break.
Yes, so thank you. Thank you for your latest remarks, because I think that's exactly what I suspect is the concern of the CEO.
Sure.
So 80 to 90%, if I understood you correctly, of the work that this individual, that she will be doing, hopefully, that has to, no matter what, work with the CEO. What I don't want, and I want to make this very clear, and I think a lot of my colleagues here already mentioned it, the CEO cannot have veto power when she decides to bring something to the boards. She needs to be able to have the ability to do that and not seek permission from the CEO. And that, as long as that is clear,
Yes.
I think we can move forward.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement
And I
with
request a
that.
break.
Let me just, I completely agree with that statement. I think that this particular position should have, access to the board members, especially if it's misconduct that is being allocated to, alleged myself or, one of the trustees or what have you, right? And so we're going to follow that practice. And my issue is exactly what was just explained right now, is that, there's a whole bunch of other things that I need to be able to manage as part, and even standing this up. And so what I'm requesting is that we go ahead and approve it the way it is. We'll make some clarifying language to make sure that there is access to the board members in as part of the orientation. I'll work with the audit committee, and we'll discuss that particular element and how we're going to communicate that to the new person coming on board. These are you always have access to the board members, so on and so forth. Feel free to do that. And Richard's role as well, if there is allegations of misconduct, he's going to be involved also. I mean, so, and he has the independent to go directly to the boards as well.
Just want to make sure that what we're talking about here is codified. I don't feel comfortable, let's approve it the way it is, and then we're going to handle it, because while I have a lot of respect for you, you might not be here next year, and some new CEO comes in, oh, it's not in writing. So I'm agreeing with you. I just want to make sure that it is codified, so there's no questions by anyone in the future as to how we're going to, this program is going to function.
So Rebecca, for the 5% that would elevate to the board level, what's the escalation triggering language that needs to be there so that both the officer and the CEO is both aware that, hey, this is something that, we come to a disagreement or whatever else it is, but it triggers the...
Doug, another great question, Trustee Jones. So first of all, I think it will be clear in the documentation that there is a direct line to the audit committee and to the boards at the judgment of the chief ethics and compliance officer. This is going to be someone who is experienced, who has good judgment, who has gravitas, who understands what is an important issue versus not an important issue, and so should have the ability to go directly to the boards. But at many organizations, and I would certainly recommend this here, and recommend it to all of my clients, there is also an escalation protocol that specifies very clearly for these types of allegations, they will be reported to the board promptly, immediately. You know, the language can vary, but the intent of those protocols is to specify clearly that when there's an allegation against the CEO, against chief counsel, against the chief audit executive, those need to be escalated pretty much immediately to the audit committee, typically. That can vary, but typically to the audit committee so that there's oversight with respect to how those types of allegations are handled. That you might also have a provision that says if there's an allegation of fraud of X dollars, that needs to be escalated immediately. If there's an allegation of violation of corruption laws, that needs to be escalated immediately. So that those details can be worked out, but specifying those in advance, I think, is always a good practice.
Chair Gray, could I bring this back to the charter? The proposed charter states that the CECO has direct and independent access to the ACRE and the boards.
So I just want to thank everybody for the conversation. That was very helpful and clarifying. And I would just go back to the previous comments then of allowing the hiring selection to be a part of the audit committee and any termination to be finalized by the audit committee. And then we keep that language that's in there right now. And then I think we're very safe on saying that there's no concerns with the chief ethics officer to be able to bring items to the board if it rises to that level, but still working closely and directly with the CEO. So I'm comfortable.
And on that point, Chair Gray, just to make sure that we're clear, the existing charter says that the CEO will be the CECO's appointing authority, but the ACRE committee will approve the CEO's hiring, firing, discipline of the CECO and contribute to the CEO's performance evaluation of the CECO. So we've got that affirmative statement that they shall approve.
Why don't we take a 10-minute break? Want to continue the presentation? Did we ask enough questions? And I think we're all clear on where we go from here. So we want to go back to your
Yes,
presentation.
we'll go to slide 23, which is on the screen. And we'll just go over briefly the scope of the program activities. These are spelled out in the charter, but it's worth reviewing them. And all of these activities track the elements that are stated in the DOJ guidance to the sentencing guidelines. So it starts with the establishing the ethics and compliance program framework. Ethics and compliance risk assessment is a foundational element of the program. Monitoring of ethics and compliance in LACERA's operations and business practices, review of policies and procedures, vendor third-party ethics, compliance and risk, privacy, training, communication, and incentives relating to ethics and compliance issues. And as was mentioned earlier, this will be something that will be closely worked on in collaboration with the HR director. Channels for staff to report ethics and compliance concerns, investigation, response, remedial measures, a measure of organizational culture, of ethics and compliance. This notion of organizational culture is also in the DOJ guidance, and it's a separate measurement that will take place separate from the risk assessment. And then regular reporting, and we've discussed a lot about that. And then finally, the annual self-assessment and review of the program. The program will also be subject to review by internal audit because the program is a form of internal control, and the job of internal audit is to assess the adequacy of internal control. So the program will be subject to internal audit, and we will also seek to have external review periodically as well. Next slide. We've talked a lot about responsibilities and accountability, but the notions of the accountability of the program to the boards, to the audit committee, to the CEO are really baked into this charter very strongly. We have a separate section that deals with the issue of accountability. And with that, we have Rebecca and Richard who are here. If there are any additional questions for them, and if not, we can go to slide 31, and Allison will close.
So I'm back for the ask, if you will. Well, Luce is the official closer, so I'm setting him up. So we're requesting the JOGC recommend that both boards forward the proposed ethics and compliance program charter, along with any of the changes and bump ups and boosts we've discussed today, to the audit committee for further development, ultimately to return to both boards for final approval. And meanwhile, we will also update the audit committee charter to then integrate the ethics and compliance program charter and enhance the audit committee's ethics and compliance oversight role, at which time it will become the Audit Compliance Risk and Ethics Committee, which we will call ACRE because that's a mouthful. And then we will continue preparation of the CECO job description for completion after our charters are completed and approved. And the Multi-Divisional Ethics and Compliance Committee, which has been operating since February 2022, formerly known as the Policy Committee, it's going to continue to meet monthly to support the development and ultimately the operation of the Ethics and Compliance Program. So our target date for program approval is June 30th, 2024. And with that, I will turn it over to Louis.
Thank you, Allison. And we've had a lot of discussion, a lot of fruitful discussion. And ultimately, this process, we realized that we've spent about a year on this, and you're hearing it for the first time over the last month or so back in January. But we appreciate the feedback. We will make any relevant updates that you provided, the direction you provided to the charter. And again, ultimately, we're all aligned. This benefits our members. It goes to our mission about producing, protecting, and providing a promised benefit. So again, we appreciate all your thoughts and responses in terms of our presentation. And with that, I want to thank the panel and obviously the chair, Gray, and the committee.
I move approval as proposed by management with the modifications submitted to this morning by the board members.
A second.
Been moved and seconded, and now my screen is a mess. So, it's been moved and seconded. Shall we vote on it?
Sure. Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Kehoe?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
All we needed was a break.
That was healthy. Okay, so.
Very much.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
That was very, very helpful, the whole discussion.
Okay, now we're on the, hey Bonnie, now I can't get out of this at all. I am getting really,
You can just go ahead and click on the left side at the last.
okay, so how do I get rid of these slides? Oh, the slides, oh, it's still up there, okay.
Yeah, just grab it. Yeah, grab it.
That's okay, there's the boardroom. Okay. All right, are we ready for item 7B? Our 2024 Joint Organizational Governance Committee, that's JOGC, proposed meeting calendar and agenda items.
If I can just suggest in April, I'm very tied up, but April 17th and the 24th are the only 2 dates that work for me. So unless there's any objection with either the 17th or the 24th, I would suggest we start there with the conversation.
All right.
For
Get my
April.
calendar. I had written it down. When's spring break? 17th, and how about the 24th? How's everybody on the 24th? That way, there's no issue with spring break and all of that. Okay.
Well, there's an issue with my spring break, so.
How old are you?
You're always on spring break.
I'm doing what retiree's supposed to do, okay? Actually, the 24th would probably work just barely. I'll be back the day before from Paris, so I should be able to fit you in. We'll see. I may be a little jet lagged, but it's okay. Show up anyway.
All right.
Retirees.
Name dropper.
There you go.
And plus, I think that Nicole and Debbie will be in Wharton.
Yeah.
So we don't want to mess up their studies. We need,
No,
to study.
that's right. Yeah, you need that.
Correct.
oh, I thought you were on the committee. Aren't you lucky?
Okay.
Okay, but anyway, she'll be here.
Yep.
You should come, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the 24th, is that good for everybody? Okay. So that's going to be April 24th. Let's move on to November. I had a problem with that. Thursday, November 7th is going to be Sackers, and I know you'll all be there, so it's a conflict for everyone, right? Right? Everyone will be at Sackers. Mr. Kryman goes.
Yes, he does.
So the 14th is a bad day.
The 14th or the 7th?
Wait a minute, the 7th is good, actually. It's right after the Board of Retirement meeting.
The other meetings are too close to Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so November 7th. Okay, now, I'm looking at the various items that we'd like to discuss on those meeting dates, and I'd like to add one more, if possible. And that would be a review of our education and travel policy with some suggestions, particularly keeping in mind our new members, new board members, so I think we need to review education policy.
For
Okay.
April? For April?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we
in
give
April.
any do we need to give any direction to staff for that?
It would just be, I think, as I reviewed it, perhaps a look at our conference number, because I don't want to particularly restrict our new trustees on both boards to just 4 conferences, and the rest of the trustees, 4 conferences, because I'm finding that there are, on our approved list even, conferences and other conferences and educational items that come up that will take us way over our 4, not way over, but over our 4. Okay, so,
And then also the issue that came up with new trustees that were pre-appointed kind of thing. So if we can look in on that, I know we gave direction to staff on that previously.
okay. Any other suggestions for agenda items? No? Well, we could go back to the Ethics Committee and start over again.
No.
All right.
No.
Okay, and one thing I
Please
have
no.
to warn you on is if you have any suggestions for topics, it has to be under the Brown Act within 72 hours of our meeting. Yeah, 72 hours and beyond, but not below.
Correct.
It's the minimum. We ran into that for this meeting too. Okay? All right. Let's see here. We are at item 8, items for staff.
Can we
review.
make a motion for that, for those
Oh.
dates?
Yes. For these dates, is there a motion to approve
I'll
April
make the motion.
24th and November 7th?
I'll second.
Great, I'll take a roll call now. Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Harris? Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Keough?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously by all trustees present.
Did we need to approve the inclusion of agenda items?
Yes, I added the dates and the topics, so the trustee education and travel policy regarding the county conferences, as well as reflecting the appointed and elected trustees' educational path.
Okay. Very good.
Instantaneously.
I don't see it in writing yet. I can't see that far. All right. Let's see. Item 9, items for future agenda. I think that's encompassed in item 7, or, yeah. Okay. And good of the order. So we'll start with Mr. Harris, Mr. Paris.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for today's discussion. This was very, very helpful. I'm kind of chuckling at myself because I was not a JOGC fan. Till suddenly I found I'm on it.
I remember.
And now I'm a big fan. Well, the reason I wasn't a fan was just for this reason. I felt like as a board member, I didn't have access to all the information I really wanted. And I realized that this type of a discussion is very hard to do in a board meeting. So I appreciate this structure now more than I did before. And I really did appreciate the discussion today. That was very, very helpful. So I'm very excited to be on the JOGC. So thank you.
Ms. Martin.
For a whole different reason, I'm excited because this is all new and it gets my mind thinking, and I appreciate this group because it's constructive feedback, and we help each other through it. I felt like I was helped, by the team today to come to the conclusion I came to it wasn't adversarial, it wasn't anything like that. And so it was great. Can't wait till the next time.
Okay, Mr. Kehoe.
Just thank you, everybody, for putting up with me.
You always bring us back to the middle. Mr., should I go with Santos?
Yeah, please.
Mr.
I'll finish
Santos.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the presentation to staff. I do agree that having these discussions are very important. I think that, having the ability to ask questions and raise objections, it helped all of us come to the right conclusion. What it was really interesting is that we were all going in the same direction. The question is how we were going to get there. And that is something that I really appreciate. The other item that I want to talk about is Ms. Gray and I attended the NIRS conference yesterday, the day before yesterday. I will strongly encourage you, my colleagues on the board, to attend that. We have some very interesting discussions. One of them is Social Security and what is being discussed in Congress. There's a senator from Louisiana, forgot the name, but he has a very good positive proposal with regards to Social Security. He predicted that Social Security will run out of funds at the end of the 8 years, and he's really concerned about that. And so he has a very interesting proposal. What really resonated with me is the fact that under his proposal, the WEP and the windfall elimination provision will be eliminated, and the proposal that he has is very creative because the proposed legislations that we have to eliminate the WEP and GPO, it always reaches a roadblock because of the financial impact that it has, right? But his proposal does away or deals with the financial impact of eliminated WEP and GPO. So I asked Mr. Rice to check with his appropriate staff, Mr. Liu, to check into that legislation, because I think that should be something that should be brought up to both boards, in particular the Board of Retirement, because I think it's an interesting proposal. And what he was trying to do is trying to get many of us to get on board with that proposal. There was other wonderful discussions that we had in that conference. What's going on with the different states, since the federal government fails to develop any criteria with regards to retirement, in particular, Social Security is in trouble, or any other means, and what those the states are doing. California is one of them that created the ability for an employer with 5 employees or more to sign up with the state to provide some type of retirement benefit. It's like a 401k type of scheme. And that is important, because what we have found over the years is pension envy, right? A lot of people in the private sector, because they don't have a defined benefit like we do, their attitude is take it away from the public employees because I don't have it. And what we say is, no, don't take it away from us. It's coming in, and we're going to help you get your own retirement. So that is very positive, because, NIRS spent the whole time just making us aware that we have a retirement crisis in this country. You have, I forgot the numbers, I think it was like a substantial number of seniors, people over 65 to 75 are the work population that is growing the most in the United States. So we have, 70-year-olds, and you can see that when I go to the market, I see a lot of people my age, bagging groceries, and I talk to them, and they say, yeah, all I have is Social Security. I have no choice but to continue to work. And that is a shame in the richest, most powerful country in the world, that we're not taking care of the seniors. Anyway, that conference, I will really encourage my colleagues to attend. It was excellent. NIRS?
National Institute of Retirement
Security, right. Yeah. And it's pre-approved in the trial policy, so you can attend. And what is significant, just one more point on that, is that it really felt good to be in the conference, because I was one of the individuals to work very hard to create this organization. In 2005, when Governor Schwarzenegger had the public employees in his crosshairs, and there was a proposition on the ballot to eliminate the defined benefit in California, we went to different organizations that we belong to, in particular CII, and they took the position that they're not an advocacy organization, so therefore they could not use any of the dues to advocate on our behalf. And so we came up with the idea of creating this separate organization, which turned out to be NIRS. And the issue with that was the funding. I know labor provides a substantial amount of the funding, and other organizations as well. So it's an organization that is there to help us advocate for the defined benefit and any other retirement issues. So it's important. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jones.
Jones, thank you for allowing me to stuff my face when I do that. No, just want to compliment the staff as always in terms of presentation materials. I'm fond of saying, glass of wine and oftentimes a cigar is my pre-meeting, chance to review the materials. For the constructive conversation today, I miss you, Sheriff Kehoe, on Board of Investments, because there was always those things where like Sean would drop something in and like, well, wait a minute, what's he talking about? You know what I mean? Like you said, it has a way of and always from the perspective, I think, very necessary perspective of kind of risk management and independence and just making sure that there's clarity. And I always appreciate that about Trustee Kehoe. So thanks to the staff. Thanks for Vivian. I look forward to being a yin to your yang on JCOG here, and then the very busy year. So as I know we're evolving towards best in class, at least in the Board of Investment side. There's a lot of things underway.
Board of Retirement.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So there's all these new standards and things that we're trying to move towards from the history. So we're excited about doing that in partnership with management. So.
And Ms. Mee?
Thank you. I want to say the same thing. It's definitely not easy for staff, being asked so many questions, right? But it's a demonstration that how well you prepare, how good you know what you're doing, you're expert in the area, and you take your time, to explain everything in every angle to help this board to make more educated and prudent decision. And then this board too, every time I see this kind of engaged conversation, I feel like, oh my God, this is a great board, and then I'm really, glad to be part of it. And everyone show how much they care through the question that they ask, right? So I enjoy this conversation, and then thank you both sides, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Mr. Kryman?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the board for their willingness to listen to staff's perspectives as well. I thought that the conversation was, it played out great. I mean, there were a lot of differing opinions, but I think ultimately we were all saying the same thing. It just, so we look forward to moving forward with this particular program and making sure that it's, best in class moving forward. And so I wanted to thank my staff as well, Allison and Steve. Steve has been, I think, on me since day one, I think 4.5 years ago, about standing something like this up. And so it's nice to see that we've made significant progress in terms of building the foundation for a program that is definitely in line with the strategic direction that not only the Board of Investments has for us, but also the Board of Retirement Trustees as well. So thank you very, very, very much. And Louis, thank you as well for your leadership on this.
Mr. Rice? All right, thank you. And Luis?
Echo all the comments again. Really good discussion overall, and I'm looking forward to presenting and maturing this program moving forward. So thank you.
Great. And Richard, I know we mentioned the audit committee so much, so I want to hear what your comments are for good of the order.
I just commend the board for taking the step and going in the right direction as soon-to-be retiree, not too far off. I'm
Is that you?
Well, no, you guys might. not too soon, but, you know, as I just to see the organization maturing, it's a pleasure to see the organization going in the right direction and really maturing. So I give kudos to the board and to management for doing this.
All right, thank you. I would only add to the good of the order, a comment about Mr. Santos saying that we should attend NERS. I agree. It's only once a year. However, during the year, they send out notices and brief reviews of webinars. And I just encourage my fellow trustees to sign up for those webinars. Take a moment. It's part of your fiduciary duty to get educated. And I mean, you don't have to leave you can stay in your pajamas and watch it, okay? So sign up for those, and they are particularly educational. And one thing I want to do is thank the staff for being here and making those presentations, because one thing I have learned, particularly, being on the board of directors for SACRS, is that there are a lot of systems, even in California, that don't even have a staff. Yeah, one person, and they are all over the place. Having a staff like we have, Mr. Kryman and all of you, it's so important. I mean, I'm looking at Frank, they don't even have an attorney to call, to suggest what we should do on disability cases. I mean, or even how to look at them. They don't have that. They don't have a legal department. That's why we're called the big dogs, okay? That's what happens. And it's not only in California, it's across the nation. And you find that out. So I want to thank staff for all of your work, because now I really, really appreciate you. So thank you very much. And that's it. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So move.